Hey guys, welcome back to the Socialography YouTube channel where we talk about all things marketing. In today's video, I'm going to break down the Apple versus Facebook drama that you've probably heard a little bit about, whether you've seen it in the news or saw it trending on Twitter or whatever. But at some point you probably thought to yourself, what the heck is going on? So in this video, I'm going to break down a few things. First, what Apple is actually doing with the iOS 14 update. Second, what Facebook's reaction to this update is. Third, what it actually means for small businesses that Facebook is pretending to care so much about. And fourth, I'm going to give you my take on the whole thing. So let's get started. If you're new here, my name is Angela, and I'm a recovering former marketing agency professional. If you know, you know. I've got a little over 10 years of experience in the sales and marketing industry, and currently I teach small business owners how to do their own marketing, specifically using Facebook ads to grow their audience, reach new clients, generate leads, and grow their business. So when I saw that Facebook started taking out newspaper ads, complaining about what Apple was doing, I thought I should probably look into this, and boy did I. So before we talk about what Apple is actually doing, I do want to give you guys a little bit of a background on what's going on here, because although this has been making headlines recently, there has been a battle brewing between Apple and Facebook for quite some time now. So first off, it's important to note the very different and sometimes opposing business models between the two tech giants. And I did a lot of research on this video, and I came across an article on thehustle.com that I think spelled out the differences between the two pretty well. So I'm going to read an excerpt from that article. It says, Apple sells high-priced hardware and controls the entire experience with an emphasis on privacy, whereas Facebook offers a free, albeit ad-supported, social and communication tools to billions of users. The biggest difference here being that Apple provides high-priced premium products focused on security, and Facebook provides free products that are ad-supported. So as you can see, there's a pretty big difference between the two business models, and the two CEOs have had a lot to say about the other's business model over the years. First off, Tim Cook, Apple's CEO, has criticized Facebook for, quote, collecting gobs of data and monetizing its customers. And in a 2018 interview with MSNBC, Cook slammed Facebook, saying, quote, privacy is a human right, it's a civil liberty.
The truth is, we could make a ton of money if we monetized our customer. If our customer was our product, we could make a ton of money. We've elected not to do that.
Now, all of this was around the time of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and if you're not familiar with that, I will include a link below in the description box to give you some more information on it. I do not have time in this video to get into that scandal as well, so if you're not familiar with it, give that article a read. But in 2018, Facebook was under a lot of scrutiny because of a data breach involving a company called Cambridge Analytica. So that's what I'm referencing when I talk about the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And this was all over the news in 2018, around the time when Tim Cook gave this interview to MSNBC. So of course he was asked about Facebook, and he was asked about this situation in particular, but even being asked that question, he did not mince his words, and he definitely took this as an opportunity to take a pretty big jab at Facebook during that interview. Now, our good friend, Mr. Zuckerberg, did not take this lying down. Shortly after that interview, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's CEO, responded by saying Cook's criticism was, quote, extremely glib and not at all aligned with the truth. Shots fired. Also, Mark Zuckerberg is an alien, right? Like, we can all agree that aliens exist, they walk among us. He is one of them. Probably the leader. Aliens are awesome. I would love to be an alien, probably be billionaire CEO of a company or something. He's definitely an alien, right? Anyway, so this little feud has been going on for quite a while now. So why is it all coming to a head now? And what's with the newspaper ads? Zuck, let's break it down. So back in June of 2020, the year that must not be named, June of 2020, at the Worldwide Developers Conference, Apple announced its intention to implement a nutrition label or privacy disclosure on all of the apps that are available for download in the App Store with the iOS 14 update that ultimately was released in September of that year. And what that meant was that in order to have your app available in the App Store, as an app developer, you had to provide detailed information about what kind of data your app was collecting. And this could be information like financial data, contacts in your phone, web browsing history, purchase history, any type of information that your app is collecting. You had to outline it in what Apple called the nutrition labels or privacy disclosures. And not only that, this update also requires that each user opt in to allow that app to collect their data. So instead of the default where when you download an app, you're automatically opted in to allow that app access to your data, and if you want to stop that, you have to go digging through the settings in the app to try and find that to turn it off. Now it's upfront and clear, this is the data that this app is going to collect from you, and not only that, are you okay with allowing it? So you can actually opt out of allowing that app to collect the data on you. So these changes included in the iOS 14 update, while developed to increase user security and privacy, will actually have a pretty drastic impact on the usability and reliability of IDFAs. And if you're not familiar with IDFAs, they are the identifier for advertisers, and they are the individual but random identifiers used by Apple to identify and measure iOS devices. And this identifier for advertisers is what Facebook uses to both track and measure an ad's performance, but also allow advertisers to target an audience based on their mobile activity. So, to put it in simple terms, Apple claims that they want to put the power back in the user's hand and provide their customers more privacy and security by allowing users to decide which apps can access their data and track their device usage. Okay, so now let's talk about how Facebook reacted to this change. Spoiler alert, not well.
Not well, bitch.
So in order to give some context as to why Facebook reacted and is continuing to react the way that they did, we need to talk a little bit about how Facebook ads actually work. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about how the mechanics of Facebook ads work. So the Facebook ads ecosystem works like an auction, and advertisers are able to bid on an impression, essentially. Advertisers are paying Facebook to show their ad to a specific audience. And every time someone from that audience sees the ad, that's an impression. And that's what you're paying Facebook for. So as an advertiser, I can go to Facebook and say, I want to show my ad to as many small business owners as possible in these specific locations with these specific interests. And in order for Facebook to reliably complete that request, it requires them to have gobs of data on all of their users that they can then use to serve my ad to the right people. And not only that, that data has to be accurate, up to date, reliable, and trackable. Advertisers also have the ability to select specific placements for their ads. And placements are where your ad actually shows up. So for instance, like the desktop newsfeed of Facebook. Mobile news feed is another placement. Facebook feed, Facebook story, I just said that. Instagram feed, Instagram story, Facebook story. All of these are individual placements that the advertiser can select to have their ad shown. But in addition to these in-app or in Facebook placements, Facebook also offers what's called an audience network placement. And the audience network is an off-Facebook, in-app advertising network for mobile apps. The key here being off Facebook and mobile apps. So the audience network placements include audience network native banner and interstitial, audience network reward videos, and audience network in-stream videos. So advertisers can select any of those audience network placements, which would then put their ad in mobile apps outside of Facebook. And if users are able to start opting out of sharing their data with these specific apps and the IDFAs that Facebook uses, then they no longer have the most accurate, up-to-date, and reliable information to track the performance of the ads, both being placed on the audience network, but also the audience that advertisers are targeting in these audience networks. So when Facebook heard all of these changes were coming to the iOS 14 update, what did they do? Well, the very first thing Facebook did when they heard about these changes was shit their pants. I'm just kidding. Oh gosh. But they probably shit their pants. I mean, I don't know what the very first thing they did was, but since hearing about these changes, Facebook has done a lot. So let's talk about it. So since Apple's first announcement in June at the Worldwide Developers Conference, Facebook has, number one, released multiple announcements on their website talking about the impacts that these changes in iOS 14 updates will have to small business owners. They have taken out not one, but 2 full-page newspaper ads in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post. They have launched a Speak Up for Small campaign claiming that small businesses deserve to be heard, and created an entire website complete with videos from small business owners expressing their fears about no longer being able to use targeted Facebook ads to grow their audience and expand their business. And Facebook has also started warning advertisers directly at the source. In Ads Manager, there's an on-screen pop-up that appears warning advertisers about how Apple's changes may significantly impact your marketing efforts. There's a link to learn more on that pop-up that takes you to yet another announcement about how these changes will impact small businesses and advertisers. Now, on this page, they also have a section titled Our Response, and I want to go ahead and just read this section real quick because I find it to be a pretty detailed statement about what their official stance is on these changes. So it reads, our response. We disagree with Apple's approach and solution, yet we have no choice but to show Apple's prompt. The nutrition label is what they're talking about, or privacy disclosure. If we don't, they will block Facebook from the App Store, which would only further harm the businesses and users that rely on our services. Thanks, Facebook. We cannot take this risk on behalf of the millions of businesses who use our platform to grow. Now, immediately below that section, they also have another section titled Our Commitment to You, where they talk about how their priority is to continue providing stability to small businesses. They'll continue to support your business through these changes. And the last sentence in this paragraph says, we encourage you to share this information within your organization and develop a plan to address this disruption to your existing marketing efforts. What? A little dramatic on Facebook's part, I would say. And if I were still working at a marketing agency and managing hundreds of Facebook ad campaigns right now, I would probably be freaking out a little bit about what these changes will do to the success or the performance of those campaigns that I'm managing and how that would impact our clients and in turn our agency. But I have been working in social media and running Facebook ads for a long time now. And this is not the first time that I have seen impacts to Facebook's access to personal data, nor do I think this will be the last time that we see these types of changes. Now, does that mean that Facebook is doomed and running ads on their platform is just a total waste of money? Absolutely not. Far and away, social media advertising is more cost-effective, it's easier, it's more accessible, it's more measurable and scalable than traditional advertising probably ever will be. But what do these recent changes actually mean for small businesses like you or me? I don't want to say we'll have to wait and see, but we'll have to wait and see, which is pretty much what we had to do back in 2018 with the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal that happened. After that, there was a pretty big impact to the type of data that Facebook had access to and the data that was available to its advertisers. And while I did notice a slight dip in the performance of the ad campaigns that I was managing, and I did have to get a little creative and think outside the box to update some of the targeting that we were doing, because some of the things we were targeting in the Facebook ads dashboard were totally removed from the platform and we no longer had access to them. But even then, that dip in performance was only temporary. And after the Facebook algorithm had time to adjust to those changes and relearn how our audience reacted to our ads, the performance bounced right back. And is that exactly what's going to happen in this situation? Possibly. And while some of Facebook's efforts to protect small businesses are pretty eye-roll worthy, I do think that small businesses should be aware that there most likely will be a small impact to the performance of their ads. However, I don't think all of the panic and 2 newspaper ads are worth it at this point. And Facebook has so much data on all of us at this point that it's going to be really difficult to truly disrupt their audience targeting. Now, the biggest impacts felt from these changes will be to businesses who advertise with the goal of their campaign being app downloads or installs, or advertisers who heavily rely on audience network placements for the success of their campaigns. But I have a feeling that even these impacts will be temporary. And why do I think that, you ask? Well, because Facebook said it themselves, and there's proof. In an article published by BuzzFeed News on December 22nd, 2020, titled, "Facebook Says It's Standing Up Against Apple for Small Businesses. Some of its employees don't believe it." BuzzFeed shared some internal communications and audio recordings of presentations given to Facebook employees, where one of the employees wrote, quote, "It feels like we're trying to justify doing a bad thing by hiding behind people with a sympathetic message." Another employee posed the question, quote, "Aren't we worried that our stance protecting small businesses will backfire as people see it as Facebook protecting their own business instead?" And another employee said, "People want privacy," as well as, quote, "How do we pick a message that looks less self-serving?" Now, in this article, there's also a quote from the Facebook Vice President of Product Marketing, Graham Mudd, and I'd like to read his quotes word for word. So I'm going to pull that article up. He said that the company has, quote, "been really clear in marketing materials and calls with analysts and the press that Apple's iOS change does have a financial impact on us." So there's the key. He also went on to say, "We're not trying to sweep that under the rug. We are, a profitable big company, and we're going to get through this and adapt our products and so forth. But the real folks that are going to get hit by this are small businesses. And that's why we made them the focus of the message." Thanks, Mudd. So nice. Looking out for us small businesses. Now, the article actually has a lot more information and a lot more quotes that are really, really interesting. So I suggest that you read the full article. I will include the link to that as well in the description box below. In fact, I'll include links from every article that I used as a source in this video, so be sure to check those out. But this BuzzFeed News article has a lot of really good insight from internal communications at Facebook about what they all think about this change. And what I found interesting was that they're essentially saying internally what I suspected was actually happening here. So let's get into my take on all of this. Number one, this is more so a pissing match between 2 rich men who want to control the internet than anything.
Hey!
2, the impacts to small businesses, if any, will be minimal and most likely temporary. And number 3, this move by Apple is sparking a much bigger conversation about privacy and security on the internet than I think Facebook is willing to have right now. Although this particular change isn't going to end Facebook advertising as we know it, I think bigger changes that are happening throughout the world and eventually here in the United States as well will have impacts to companies whose business model is data collection. And I'm not just talking about Facebook. I'm talking about companies like Google and Yahoo and Bing and other social media companies like TikTok and Snapchat. LinkedIn and Twitter are also going to start feeling the impacts of these new privacy and security regulations that are inevitably coming. Right now, the laws that we have surrounding privacy and security on the internet are far behind the reality of what these tech companies are developing on a daily basis. And I think Mark Zuckerberg knows that eventually that's going to change. In fact, in 2018, shortly after the Cambridge Analytica scandal, the European Union introduced the GDPR, or the General Data Protection Regulation, which was implemented with the purpose of protecting user data, ensuring that it wasn't used by wrongful vested interests without the consent of the user. And as a result, the GDPR ensures that businesses take consent from their audiences before using or processing their data. Sound familiar? So before Apple even enacted these changes with the iOS 14 update, Facebook was already under pressure to start disclosing what type of data they were collecting and how they were using it. And these are details that Facebook probably didn't think we needed to know. Why would we need to know that? We're too stupid to understand it all. Anyway, you guys, that's the story, that's the background, and this is why Facebook was having such a public reaction to Apple's changes in the most recent iOS 14 update. Now, there's a lot more details that I couldn't include in this video, or it would have been quite a bit longer than it already is. So I do encourage you to check out the links that I include in the description box down below if you would like more information on everything that's going on. And if you have any more questions about all of this and how it could potentially impact you as a small business owner, feel free to leave a question in the comments down below. I would love to continue this discussion with you guys. And if this video was helpful for you or you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more marketing content, my social media, my website. More information on my course that teaches you how to run Facebook ads is all included in the description box as well. So be sure to check that out. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.